But as a weird segue, because I'd love to ask you about, because I know you worked with Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's my favorite bands of all time, and you worked with John and then Josh, and now obviously John is back, and that was announced maybe I don't know 2 years ago now. But how excited are you about that? Because I'm super excited.
Yeah, I mean, I love Josh. I've
Yeah,
mixed
yeah, yeah.
solo
Of
stuff
course.
for him, and we're really good
Mm.
friends. But I love John as well, and I think that for me, it's not even like the band had a huge transition from one to the other because Josh had played on a bunch of John's solo records. Like they were musicians together for a long time before Josh ever did anything with the Chili Peppers. And then Josh toured with them as a fifth musician on stage at the end of the Stadium Arcadium tour. So I mean, that's just those records that they made with Josh. But the thing about John is that he was out of the band for 10 years, but I'm sure that on again and off again, he was thinking about what he might do with a rock band. Because like he was just done being in a rock band. He didn't want to be in a band anymore when he left. Like, okay, fine. As far as I know, I mean, he didn't tell me that. That's what I read or something like that. Like he just didn't want to be in the
Yeah.
band anymore. Like it was just he wanted to do some other stuff. But I'll bet he's got 10 years of ideas that have been percolating. And so I'm super excited to hear whatever it is that they do. Yeah. But I'm super excited to hear basically even One Hot Minute. Like it's not my
Yeah,
favorite
yeah.
Chili Peppers record, but it's still a Chili Peppers record.
Hmm.
So yeah.
No, I love that one too. But so have you been involved in working with the new album at all,
No,
or
no,
no?
not at all. Not at all.
Do you know who's involved?
No, don't know a thing.
Right.
But I'm
You're just a
very
fan,
excited
huh?
to
As
hear
me.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool, man. And actually, before our interview, I saw that Rick Rubin was on Mark Maron's podcast, and I don't know if you're familiar with his podcast, but he was talking about just like Rick Rubin was saying how he's the least technical person in the room. Essentially, he just said, "I just sit in the back." I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "I'm sitting in the back and I just say, oh, make it sound different or something like that." And obviously, you work with him, so I'm just curious to hear like how is it being in the, or maybe not how it is being with him in the room, but how is it working with him, like taking directions? Is he a person who says, "Oh, Andrew, make it sound better"? Like, is it sort of that directions, or is
Well,
it more
what
casual?
the point is that he is the epitome of somebody who only cares about what he's hearing coming out of the speakers.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter if you're using a Neve and a Fairchild. If it's not
Yeah.
happening, it's not happening. Period. And that's
Mm-hmm.
it. And that's basically what he was saying is that if he's in the back of the room and he's not enjoying it, you got to enjoy it. And whether that's something to do with the arrangement or something to do with the way people are playing their instruments or something to do with the way you're recording it, whatever it is, that's got to get sorted out because that's
Mm.
the gig. And that's that if essentially that's the job of any producer is to get rid of all the stuff they don't like because their job is to have an opinion. There are lots of other jobs producers do, but basically have an opinion and finish a record. That's what they're there to do. And so
Mm.
what Rick's describing is like that's the core idea of doing it is being in the back of the room, always being objective, always listening, and trying to direct the people to make it be what they think it's supposed to be.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and obviously he's done that very well.
Yeah.
But he's also hiring people like you who knows. I mean, you know your way around the studio definitely, and how to make stuff sound killer. Uh, but how did you guys click? I mean, if there is such a thing to click
Well, I
between.
think, the thing with if you talk to anybody about what's like the most important thing, obviously you have to be competent, but the most important thing is that you're somebody people want to be in the room with
Mm.
because it's a really intense, collaborative, exposing, lengthy process, and everybody's got to be in the room. And if you're an asshole, why would they want you in the room? There's got to be somebody else who can do what you do who's less of an asshole. So I think, that a part of why I worked with Rick for so long was just we got along, and I made stuff happen. Like that's all. It's
Mm.
just and I think with the artists as well, it wasn't just Rick, it's like if Rick liked me, but the artist didn't, like, there'd be a lot of times where I'd be doing overdubs, like with John on By the Way. It was just me and John. So obviously at that point, the only thing that would matter to Rick is the final thing that I have recorded. Well, with John, that's going to be more about what John wants to have happen than what I want to have happen anyway. But I'm there because I can be in the room with John, figure out what he wants to do. How are we going to make that happen and make it happen in a way that keeps John happy and creative and everything moving forward? And then when Rick hears the stuff, it isn't like, oh, well, okay, I kind of see what you were going for, but why the hell is it like that? Like, it's like, great. And they move on and just do what they do.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm gonna be a bit of a fanboy for a second, if that's okay. Because I know obviously you worked on Stadium Arcadium, and I remember when I started out, that was the record that I was really listening to a lot, and obviously you guys did a terrific work on that record. But as a broad question, what was the experience working on that record? Because you recorded and mixed it, right? So you
No,
were part of the whole.
I didn't do the basic tracking. So Mark
Right.
Lynette and Ryan Hewitt did most of the basic tracking, and then Ryan and I did a lot of the overdubs. But mostly, I recorded Anthony's vocals. Like that's
Right.
and for a long time, because we had 50 songs for that record, and he recorded lead vocals on all of them, or 50, 38. I don't remember. It was a lot of songs. And so for a really long time, I was just doing vocals with Anthony. And then mixing, Ryan Hewitt and I both mixed. So we mixed about half each of the record.
Yeah. But was there ever like, did the band come in and listen and Rick, or was it sending? Because you did an analog, obviously, so I
Yeah,
assume they would have
that
to
record
come
was
in.
all analog, but we would make, at that point, we couldn't send stuff over the internet, so we would make CDs. And they were being driven over. John would usually come because he usually had enough things that he wanted to get his hands on and change during the mixes. So he'd usually come in for like a day on each mix just to tweak stuff that would be too difficult to give me notes on. And he'd want to experiment a little bit more. But the rest of the guys, would just be comments,
Right.
emails or phone calls or whatever.
Right. But are you the one who got them into like modular synths? Because I know you're really into modular synths, and I've seen
I
them.
didn't get them into it. No, John got me back into it. I mean, I used them in college and loved them, but I never had bought one because it's such a rabbit hole. I knew there's no way to get in cheap. It's impossible. Like you need to spend thousands of dollars. But on By the Way, we used John's modular to process tons of stuff. And it was just me and him in a hotel room processing stuff like for days on end. And it was so much fun and so great that's when I decided, like, no, I actually need to buy a system, and got back into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also a fan of modular synths, and like you just said, like, you can't get in cheap. So I actually managed to get like a Korg MS-20, like not the old one, but the reissue, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And just experimenting with like the softer version. I forgot what it's called, VC Rack or something. But it's like you said, like John, and I think he did that on Stadium Arcadium too. There's a lot of guitars going through the modular synth, which is it's just so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And vocal treatments as well. Yeah. And on By the Way, Josh and I did tons of vocal treatments, especially on the I'm Beside You collection, the ones that came out afterwards. We did tons of stuff and guitar pedals and, like whatever. We put the whole mix through guitar pedals in a couple of spots. And that's what's great about both of those guys. I mean, obviously, everyone in that band is ridiculously creative. But in particular, John and Josh were really into this, like, I want to make a moment out of that syllable. Like, okay, what are we going to do? And there'd be an idea and you'd just chase it and do it. So, yeah, super, super creative.